Welcome to How to Math. This video will show you how to factor and solve a trinomial equation using the diamond method. This is the first example that we will factor and solve for. We will start out by drawing an x for the diamond method. To calculate the numbers that go at the top and the bottom, it would be a times c and b. For this equation, a is 1, b is negative 2, and c is negative 35. They refer to the coefficients of each term. A is 1, b is negative 2, c is negative 35. So for the top, a times c would be 1 times negative 35, which is negative 35. B is negative 2, so we'd put negative 2 down here. So now we are looking for two numbers that multiply to equal negative 35 and add to equal negative 2. Feel free to pause the video as you think about the two numbers that we would put in these two spots. I got negative 7 and 5. Negative 7 times 5 is negative 35. Negative 7 times or plus 5 is negative 2. So now what we're going to do is bring down the first term and the last term. X squared negative 35. And what the diamond method does is essentially help you find two numbers that you can break this middle term into. That's why it's multiply to equal negative 35 and add to equal the b term, because we're essentially just breaking the negative 2 up into two other numbers. That would make it easier for us to factor. So you can write negative 7x first or 5x first. It does not matter. You will get the same answer regardless. I personally like putting in the negative numbers first. So minus 7x plus 5x. So now what we're going to do is group the first two terms and the second two terms. For the first two terms, we're looking to see what we can factor out. In this case, it would be an x. So we have x minus 7 left over. And then for the second two, looks like we can factor out a 5, x minus 7 equals 0. Also, when you are using the diamond method, these two numbers, one is not always positive and one is negative. They could both be negative and they could both be positive. So now that we've factored out the x and the 5, we need to make sure that whatever is left in the parentheses is the same. If they're not the same, you either need to double check the two numbers that you got using the diamond method or double check what you factored out and what you got after. They should be exactly the same. So what we're going to do now is combine the x that we factored out with the 5 that we factored out into x plus 5. And bring down that x minus 7 equals 0. So now the equation is completely factored. We need to solve next. What we're going to do is set each of these quantities equal to 0. X plus 5 equals 0 and x minus 7 equals 0. For this one we get x equals negative 5. And for this one, we get x equals 7. And those are the two solutions to this equation. Now you'll notice that the negative 5 and 7 seem very similar to the negative 7 and 5 that we initially plugged into this x. That is because whenever the leading coefficient is 1, you can actually go directly to this step. Since we had negative 7 and 5, you could go to x minus 7 and x plus 5 equals 0 and gotten the factored form and then gone on to solve them You would get the same answer regardless. I wanted to show you this way because it shows each step and how exactly you get to this point. Plus, it will make the next example easier to understand when the leading coefficient is not 1. For our next example, we will be factoring and solving this equation. So we start out with the x for the diamond method. Let's address that a is 6, b is -5, and c is -4. We got the 6 because it's attached to the x squared, the -5 is in front of the x, and -4 is the constant. So at the top, as a reminder, it's a times c, the bottom is b. So a times c is 6 times -4, which is -24. B here is -5, so we have a -5. And now we are looking for two terms that multiply to equal -24 and add to equal -5. Feel free to pause the video again to think about those two numbers. I got -8 and 3. -8 times 3 is -24, -8 plus 3 is -5. So what we are going to do now is bring down the first term, 6x squared, bring down this last term, -4, and we are going to populate it with -8x and 3x in whichever order you prefer. So now we are going to group the first two terms and group the second two terms. From the first two terms, we can factor out a 2x. We'll have 3x minus 4 left over. And then with 3x and -4, there isn't really anything you can factor out of those. I like to put a 1 on the outside as a placeholder. So now we combine the 2x and the 1. So we have 2x plus 1. And we need to make sure 3x minus 4 here and this term 3x minus 4 are exactly the same, which is good, so we've done everything right so far. 3x minus 4 equals 0. So now we have this equation completely factored. The next step would be to solve. So we said each of these quantities equal to 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0. 3x minus 4 equals 0. And we're going to solve. Subtract 1 from both sides, we have 2x equals -1. Then x ends up equaling -1 over 2 after dividing 2 out from both sides. On this side, we have to add 4 to both sides. 3x equals 4, divide by 3, divide by 3, we get x equals 4 over 3. And you have your two answers. Depending on your teacher, they might require you to change this to a mixed fraction. Generally in higher level maths like this, it's fine to leave it as an improper fraction. That concludes the topic of this video. I hope it was helpful. If you'd like videos made on any other mathematical topic, please leave a comment below. Toodles!